Digital Marketing Radio, episode 127. How can e-commerce stores take advantage of email marketing?
DigitalMarketingRadio.com.
Today's episode is brought to you by Aweber. Build your email list, engage your subscribers, do email the right way. I've arranged a special deal for all Digital Marketing Radio listeners, and that's a 60-day free trial for the email marketing software provider I use, Aweber. Lock in your 60-day free trial, plus view a video that I've recorded on the 3 reasons why I use the service at aweber.com/DMR. So just go to aweber.com/DMR to get started today.
The big interview with David Bain.
I'm David Bain, and this is Digital Marketing Radio, weekly interviews with online marketing gurus. Catch up with all the previous episodes at digitalmarketingradio.com. Now, today's guest has been featured in Forbes, Superfast Business, and Marketing Optimization TV. I've been on Marketing Optimization TV with Alex too, actually. But my guest has built up a popular email marketing podcast, The McMethod, with over 200,000 downloads to date. And he's also co-founder of his own e-commerce email marketing company. Welcome to DMR, John McIntyre. Welcome, John.
David, it's great to be here, mate. This is the first live. I think this is the first live podcast I've done, so I'm excited.
Well, hopefully this will be the first of many. Hopefully this will get you into it, and you'll be recording all your own podcasts here from moving forward. So, well, you can find John over at reengager.com. I pronounced it correctly, John?
Yeah, reengager.com.
Reengager.com, yeah. E-commerce stores is obviously what you're focusing on with helping people with their email marketing methods. So, but I mean, why did you actually choose to focus on e-commerce?
Oh, there's probably the short story and the long story. The short story is that, I've been doing project-based marketing consulting, for want of a better way to put it, for the last 3 years. And I realized that a big limitation with the company that I built and the marketing that I built was that it didn't focus on a core target customer. It just was about email marketing, which meant that I attracted a very general audience, anyone from beginners all the way through to people with serious companies and everyone in between, anyone who was interested in using email marketing to get sales. So I realized that I needed to, number one, pick a core, one customer, one specific type of person to target. And I also realized that, one mistake, one lesson that I've learned is that recurring revenue, it's not everything, but it's very important, and it makes for a much more consistent business. And so I also wanted when looking for a target customer, I was looking for someone that would be able to, where recurring revenue would make sense. And so for e-commerce companies, it's a very specific target. They're very easy to find because they all use similar types of software. There's tons of them. It's a huge market, and they've got ongoing email marketing needs, which means there is a lot of potential for recurring programs.
So what's the main difference, if there is any, for email marketing for an e-commerce store compared with maybe a consultancy business or another type of business?
With email marketing, you have a lot of so with e-commerce, there's a lot more different things you can do, and partly the reason is probably just there's a lot more transactions going on. Right. Whereas if you're selling consulting, I mean, that you can get really advanced with it if you want to build out an entire sales funnel with different sequences and sub-sequences and all of that. That gets very complicated, and probably only the best consultants or the best marketing, the consultants who are the best marketers are actually going to be able to do that. And so what I found, to give you an example, is every e-commerce client that we work with is, for the most part, they're all the same. They're different revenue levels, different products, but they have the same problems. They need the same campaigns. They use the same software for the most part. So it's very straightforward. Where, when I'm working with different consultants and software companies and all sorts of different stuff, it means that every project we do is custom. So it eats into the margin. It means each project takes more time and planning, more brain power on my end to sort of, think up, and try and solve their problem. I suppose that's really just a difference in e-commerce and, a very general difference. But yeah, I mean, with consulting, you're going to have someone visiting a landing page. Maybe you send them some emails and try and get them on the phone. Mm-hmm. That's pretty much your sales process. Whereas for e-commerce, you've got, people who sign up first on the site. You've got cart abandonment. You've got new customers, repeat customers. You've got people who don't open their email after 60 days. And all those things do apply for a consultant, but because the transaction volume, for a good consultant, if they've got 20 clients, they're doing 20 transactions, and that's if they're monthly clients as well. Whereas with e-commerce, you get a store that's doing $2 or $3 million in revenue. They could be doing 4,000, 10,000 transactions a month, which means that all these little campaigns have a lot more of an impact.
You mentioned transactional emails there. For sending transactional emails, automated emails, based upon something, I guess, a customer purchases or signs up to, is it worthwhile always using a third-party platform like SendGrid to send these emails? Or do you find a lot of big companies are still actually using their own servers to deliver these type of emails?
I mean, it's really a question here is like, do you have the bandwidth? Does the company have the bandwidth to focus on the deliverability issues, which is, it gets very technical, but it's into all, there's basically what you see when you get an email, which is the colors, the design, the copy, all of that. There's a lot of invisible stuff, which is in the, in the coding of the email and what's called that email header. Mm-hmm. And also there's a lot of factors there, which affects the deliverability of the email. They're very technical. And for a large company that's doing, I don't know where the threshold is, but for a large company like Amazon or, any of the standard, retailers that everyone would know, the household names, they're going to have the resources to focus on their own deliverability. And because they're doing hundreds of millions of dollars in sales or billions, it makes sense for them to invest the time to try and get it up an extra percentage point. Whereas for smaller stores that are doing, 2, 3, 5, 10, $20 million, they're going to be better off spending their time and investing their resources in just other things. So you're going to be better off just outsourcing your, the technical aspect of email to, SendGrid or Klaviyo or the various email software providers.
Okay. So, I mean, if a business is actually doing email themselves and they have no idea on things like deliverability rate, what are the main issues with actually sending out emails like that from your own server in general?
I mean, this isn't really. I mean, I know a little. I'm very good on like the front end side of things, looking at like what sort of copy works, subject lines and stuff. From my understanding, though, it's things like the SPF records is a record in the header of the email, which affects whether it gets in. And as far as I understand, it tells the inbox, like Gmail or Yahoo, where the email is coming from, if it actually came from yourdomain.com. Or if it can be faked, so there's all these things, because you can send an email from, via a WordPress site and pretend it's from, set the from email. You can do this with any email software at all. You can set the from email as, larrypage@google.com. That doesn't mean that Gmail is going to believe you that it came from larrypage.com because you don't have the right SPF records and some of the other things in the email header in place. And so when you start trying to manage this stuff yourself, if you get it wrong, you can have huge deliverability problems. Like I said, it gets very technical. Like my thing is email, and that's what I've focused on for the last 4 years. And I to be completely honest, that's just not. I haven't spent much time in that area. So if I don't know too much about it, I'd really be surprised if the average business owner knows much about it.
Sure. No, I mean, I think all the average business owner is concerned about is obviously if they're sending emails out from their own server at the moment, how many of them are getting delivered? Is it potentially going to mean that they may get registered as a spam provider somewhere, and will that actually impact themselves, their own personal emails that they're sending out? Will that affect their domain as well? How dangerous is that? Because it's difficult to know these kind of things, but a lot of businesses are still doing that and probably playing with fire a little bit. But it's just challenging to actually quantify how much of a danger it is, and whether it's absolutely essential for every single e-commerce store to be just outsourcing this aspect of sending emails, or whether it's actually not that dangerous to send emails out. I was just trying to get a feel for that.
Yeah, I would be, if I was, an e-commerce store, if I was, an online retailer, I'd be using software, that's pre-built. No, I probably wouldn't use SendGrid. I'd use a platform called Klaviyo. There's other platforms out there. Plenty of these are out there at all sorts of different price points, but I'll be using software that I don't have to manage and own and optimize and make sure it's all compliant and everything like that. So I can focus on just selling the products, not worrying about the technical aspects of it. And I think there really is a risk that people are going to be ending up in the spam box and the promotions tab. And the problem is that most business owners don't know how to find out if they're actually getting into the inbox, because it's not as simple as saying, well, here's my open rate. Obviously, you want to get that up, but you're going to have to go and use tools if you want to go and actually find out whether what your deliverability is like. And this is stuff that business owners can go and look up, but the more time they spend on that area and managing that side of their business, the less time they're going to spend on more of the core business activities, which are going to drive it forward. So, yeah, my advice to probably a small to medium business owner is to absolutely use software use the software and get the copy, do the design, do all that stuff yourself if you have to, but use software that someone else has built.
Okay, great advice there, because obviously as a business owner, you should be focusing on what makes you money and what you're good at, certainly, as well. And if you start trying to do things like manage your own things in your own server, it's taking your eye off the ball game, certainly. So what about business that's selling things online, perhaps building up a little bit of database of customers who have bought something, but not doing anything that proactive apart from that with their email? What are a few of the quick wins that they could actually do to do things like increase their average order value, their average spend per customer? Can email help with that?
Absolutely. I mean, the first thing that most companies, a lot of companies, well, it's funny. Some companies are doing this, but the ones that are doing it usually aren't doing it anywhere near as effectively as they could. And there's a lot of companies that just flat out don't do it. And that's, easily the biggest win, or the lowest hanging fruit win, is cart abandonment. And that basically means that someone's going to go into the website, add a product to their cart, click checkout, go and fill out their name and email address, and then they bail. Maybe their daughter comes up and needs some food, maybe their wife distracts them, maybe their internet browser crashes. For whatever reason, they don't check out. Now, 70% of people, that happens to 70% of people who add something to the cart. So a given business is losing 2/3 of their sales to cart abandonment.
Wow. Okay.
And so what you can do is you can set up this is interesting, right? Because if you're talking about $1 million, online retailer, which isn't a big business, you're going to look at, they're losing $2 million to cart abandonment every year, which is
That's
crazy.
incredible.
Now, you can't get back all of that, but a decent cart abandonment sequence is going to bring back 10%, 15%, depending on how, depends on the market, depends on how well it's created and written, how it's executed. So if you're looking at like a $1 million business that's losing $2 million a year to cart abandonment, and you bump that by 10%, you've just given them $200,000 with what usually amounts to 2 or 3 emails.
Wow. Okay. So by cart abandonment, obviously you're talking about someone who is a registered customer with you already, and you recognize the fact that they've gone partially along the way to actually purchasing something else, or do you have their email address already?
It could be both. You could have their email address already, and you're tracking them as they visit the website because you've already got them in their database. However, this is where technology is getting really interesting these days, is you can have someone visit your checkout page and they go through the fields, right? Because usually you put in your name and first name, last name, email address, and then obviously you press tab and you go to the next box, which might be your address. And that, let's say they quit, right? They get halfway through the address and then they quit. If they haven't clicked submit, then they might lose you obviously don't have their email address. That's how it used to work. However, today, you can do this with, I think it's Ajax, there's a few different, basically set up a script that when they tab out of when they take their cursor out of the email box, it automatically saves it to your email software like that. And then you just set up what's called an if-then rule that says if their email address is saved here, but they don't actually hit the confirmation page, trigger this email sequence.
That's incredible. And can you personalize that email sequence to obviously the products that they did view as their last page? I would imagine you can do that.
Yeah, you'd absolutely want to have their shopping cart in there. So if they've got 3 products in their shopping cart, you say, hey, look, you've left these 3 products in your shopping cart. It's, everything that's in their cart should be dynamically populated into that email, including the images.
Okay, and what about doing some like proactive newsletters to people who maybe have been on your site already but not come back for a few weeks at all? Is it important to personalize those kind of emails with the products that you've found that they've been interested in the past as well? Or in that scenario, is it better just to actually do a generic email with the hottest products that you're selling at the moment?
It's going to depend. I mean, the size of the store, like, if you get a small store, then it's probably going to make sense. Once again, it just goes back to where do you want to allocate your resources. If you're splitting up the database into small segments, with a small store, it's just not going to produce a big enough return. Whereas if you got a $10 million store and you get a segment of people who spent $500,000 in the last 12 months, for example, you can run a campaign at them. You might generate $50,000. But for a small store, if you're only going to make $5,000 and you're going to spend 3 weeks putting a campaign together, it's not going to make as much sense. You're going to be better off, doubling down on paid advertising, for example, or something like that. So there's these different thresholds where it's going to make sense to get more and more dialed in. So, someone like Amazon and bigger companies, they're going to put a lot of effort and time and money into finding these segments and emailing these people.
Got you.
Whereas smaller companies will be better off spending time and energy elsewhere.
So in terms of e-commerce platforms, is it easier to integrate email with certain platforms? Is there other third-party services like Shopify, or are they not as popular now as they used to be?
You mean email software platforms, yeah?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, no. Actually, e-commerce platforms. Are there certain e-commerce platforms, e-commerce software to actually sell your products and services, support your website? Really, are there certain platforms like that make it easier to integrate effective email marketing into it?
Yeah, if you're using any of the big main platforms like Shopify, BigCommerce, Magento, you're going to have a lot of integrations that are literally one click. You basically just log in and you've integrated the software. You're going to have to put like a tracking script on the site, for example, but that's it. However, if you're using like a custom software platform or some old school version of Yahoo Store, it's going to take a lot more. You're basically just going to have to get a custom, developer to build a custom integration. It's not impossible or anything, but it's just one of these things, right? When you got Shopify, which powers, I think, the majority of the Internet 1000 retailers, the top 1000 Internet retailers, the integrations are going to get built for the companies that everyone uses.
So is there any other method of communicating with customers that are getting just as important, just as popular as email marketing, text messaging, social media at all, or is email marketing still the king, basically?
That's a really good question, actually. I think email is still very much probably the king in terms of the stats that I've seen, the research. But I'd say retargeting retargeting advertising is really coming up. It's really just another version of email, because email is just a communication mechanism that we use to bring people back to a website, back to a sales funnel, to purchase again. And so we're doing that by sending them emails to their email address that they check every day. With retargeting, we're going to send them ads. If you think about it that way, we're going to send them ads to their Pixel or their computer, wherever they happen to be in the world. We just don't need their email address anymore. So we send them ads on Facebook or on Google or display, so advertise just all over the internet. So I'd say retargeting is it helps to think about it in a similar way to email, because it's just another device that brings people back.
And of course, with retargeting, you can also upload people's email addresses as well, and you can start to match people and do advertising based on that as well. And Google are bringing that in as well over the next few weeks, I gather, as well. So that'll be quite interesting.
It's getting interesting. I mean, Klaviyo, which is an email platform for retailers, so specifically for e-commerce companies, the problem with the Facebook thing, when you upload your audience, it's manual. You've got to upload your audience. But with Klaviyo, I don't know if it's released yet or it's in the works, but basically they get a real-time update. So as people join your list, they automatically get updated in the Facebook API, or with the API, so that your custom audience gets bigger and bigger.
Okay, so we're getting for those of you listening to this on audio, we're recording this live on Blab. Getting a couple of comments coming in now as well. Digital marketer saying not if you use DriftRock. It's a software. I'm not sure about that at all. You don't know anything about that at all, do you, John?
I've never heard of DriftRock. No.
Okay.
Let's have a look for it.
Why not? Yeah, absolutely. Well, in the meantime, what we'll do is I'll segue into the second section of our discussion. So that'll focus more on your thoughts on where digital marketing's been in general and where it's heading. So starting off with
software I couldn't live without.
So what software do you currently use in your own business so that if someone took away from you, it would significantly impact your marketing success?
Sorry, can you just repeat that? I got the robot voice thing where it drops out for a second.
Yeah, sure, no problem at all. Well, this will stay in the video, but I'll probably edit the audio version here. But so, what software do you currently use in your business that if someone took away from you, it would significantly impact your marketing success?
Marketing success. There's an email marketing software which I'm using. I've been using a platform called Drip, which is at getdrip.com. However, it's really good. It's really simple. However, I'm probably going to be moving off that soon to ActiveCampaign just because for a few different reasons. If I was going to recommend, I think number one would be some sort of marketing automation software. So not a straight email software like Aweber or MailChimp, but going and getting, I'd say ActiveCampaign. That's the best one I've seen that I've played with so far. Just because you can set up all these different campaigns, everything we've been talking about, you get really, really advanced with it. So that would be number one. Other than that, I use Google Docs a ton to plan things out and make sure everything's running smoothly. I use Evernote. So if you took my Evernote away from me or Google Docs, I wouldn't know what to do with myself. Everything would just be gone.
+1 to ActiveCampaign in the comments there as well. That's interesting. So you talk about marketing automation. Have you tried HubSpot at all? Because they're supposed to be the big player in marketing automation, aren't they?
I have. I haven't tried them, but I have heard of them. I've got some sort of friends who use them. Just read an interesting blog post I can send it to you, from I think it's Justin Brook, who just left HubSpot. He said it was all good. He upgraded to the enterprise plan, and it just didn't work out for him. It kind of got a little bit. It was a bit too much, and then it was just a little bit difficult to downgrade for him. So HubSpot's expensive, and for a lot of businesses, it's going to be overkill. For online retailers, to go to that I'd be using, like I said, Klaviyo. If you're doing consulting, probably something like ActiveCampaign. I think Infusionsoft gets. I honestly don't understand why Infusionsoft gets such a high rating around here. Infusionsoft's usually on par with HubSpot. That's why I usually hear people compare them to. HubSpot to me seems overpriced for what you get.
Okay, interesting. Well, you've shared a lot of links there, so I'll chase around the web for them, and I'll leave the notes in the show notes of the show. But moving on to.
I wish I would have.
So I'd like you to look back in the very first day that you're involved in trying to market a business online. What didn't you do so well? What do you wish that you would have done differently?
Some of this we chatted about at the beginning. I wish I chose a clear target customer. So I wish I built a brand or built a company around serving one customer instead of doing a certain thing. So I built this brand around email marketing when it would have been better off if it was a brand around people who primarily sold nutritional supplements online, or who primarily were beauty and cosmetic companies, or who worked in the financial industry, or something like that. I should have done that. That's one thing I wish I would have done. Recurring revenue is something I wish I did from the start as well. So built a model, or built a business model on with some kind of recurring aspect. And the third one is really just a general mindset one, which is just sticking with stuff. I've done a lot of different projects and launched a lot of different things, but a lot of things have just sort of fizzled out, and not because that they were bad, but I think it was just after 2 or 3 months, I got bored, I got frustrated, it got hard, and maybe I didn't want to continue to grind. I wanted to feel really smart. I don't really know why, but what I need to do, what I wish I did was pick one thing and just grind and grind and grind. And so
how do you make yourself stick with something now?
I think it comes back to a change in mindset. I'm reading a really good book right now, which is on this exact topic, called Mindset by Carol Dweck, I think is her name.
Okay.
And she's it's basically about the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. The fixed mindset says, whatever amount of intelligence or brains or all that sort of stuff that you have right now is completely fixed. You can't improve that. You can't get better. The reason people are successful is because they were born with some innate thing. And when people are like that, they usually, when things don't work out for them, they don't work harder. They usually just go and find something else that's going to make them feel smart. On the other side, you've got the growth mindset, which just looks at everything like the only reason you don't have something or you're not good at something is because you just haven't put in the time and the effort to get there yet. And while some people are sort of naturally gifted at certain things and pick them up faster and maybe have a few more brain neurons to, calculate things in their head, a lot of us can, a lot of skill and being good at something just comes down to working hard for a long, long time. And so when you look at it like that and shift the mindset from this fixed mindset of I should have figured this business thing out already, I should have made X amount of dollars already, I should have done all these different things already, you start to look at it and go, okay, I haven't gotten the dream result that I sort of set out to get yet. And instead of beating myself up and feeling like a failure because of that, I can just go, well, it makes complete sense. I made some mistakes and some poor decisions, and there was all these reasons for why I made those mistakes and decisions. And I think everyone has to make certain mistakes and decisions. Some people make those early, some people make them later. And sort of looking at it that way now means that, when it comes to sticking with something, I'm not looking at it like if I'd figured out a paid traffic campaign in 2 months, I can be like, well, I just need more experience. I don't need to go and find something else. I'm not bad at it because I'm, cursed to being bad forever or anything. I just need to put some more time into it. And so looking at it that way means that you don't give up because your identity is not on the line. You're not failing because you suck. You're failing just because you just haven't had enough time involved there.
It's maturing versus having the natural traits of an entrepreneur that likes to jump about and go all over the place, isn't it?
Yeah, and I wonder, I really wonder about that whole like natural traits of the entrepreneur. And this is what the book's about, that people often look at guys like John McEnroe and really talented people and think that, talent's really what it's all about. If you don't have the talent, you can't make it. But if you look at all these different like real world examples, the people who had lots of talent, like, guys like John McEnroe and, there's some other good examples, but who had a lot of talent but didn't learn how to work hard, didn't understand that it was really about the work and not about the talent, they usually fell from favor eventually. They made some mistakes. They didn't stay on top for as long as they could. They certainly didn't maximize the potential. On the other hand, you've got people who, at the start of their careers and whatever they were doing, they were terrible. They were really bad. There's Michael Jordan, who got kicked out of his high school team. There's, like I said, there's a lot of different examples in this book. And hard work and effort and being willing to just invest more and more and more, usually or almost every time, beats the talented person.
Well, I'll have to look up this book actually, because last month I read the One Thing. This month I'm reading the $100 Startup.
Yeah.
I'm doing this podcast with some other podcasters in the UK called Business Book of the Month actually, and we're doing a blab here about it as well and reviewing it. So I'll look up that book and maybe we'll do that in the future as well.
Awesome.
Well, moving on to
the this or that round.
So this is the quick response round. 10 quick questions. Just 2 rules here. Try not to think about the answer too much, and you're only allowed to say the word both on one occasion. Ready to go?
Let's do it.
Email or Twitter?
Email.
Audio or video?
Audio.
Affiliates or display advertising?
Display.
Facebook or Google+?
Facebook.
Online press releases or one-on-one relations?
One-on-one relations.
Paid search or SEO?
Paid search.
Email contact form or telephone number?
Email contact form.
Website or app?
Website.
Social subscriber or email subscriber?
No, email.
And local marketing or global marketing?
Depends on the business.
Okay, that can be a both. That was fairly easy for you there as well. So you definitely went for audio over video. Obviously, you've got an audio podcast. And he's disappeared here for a second. Hopefully, you'll join us back here in a second.
I'm still here.
Okay, you're still there. Okay, you've gone there away visually from my screen, so that's a little bit strange. But I can still hear you. So okay, let's just go with that. I'm just gonna have to take off the Facebook or Google Plus question, I reckon, in the future, because the last 20 or so people that I've done it to have just laughed. Well, obviously it's Facebook. I don't know if there's anyone left that's going to say Google Plus to that one anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to
the $10,000 question.
So if I was to give you $10,000 and you had to spend it over the next few days on a single thing to grow your business, what would you spend it on, and how would you measure success?
In the next few, how long have I got? Like until Sunday or something?
Yeah, say 7 days or so.
I'd probably drop whatever, all the projects that I have going on at the moment for the next 7 days. I'd I'd finish building out a sales funnel I'm building on Facebook right now. And then I just put it all into, paid advertising, Facebook advertising, LinkedIn advertising. I just drive a ton of traffic at the landing page, run some split tests, and I do it like that.
Okay, interesting. And you're finding Facebook working for any industry, or is it only just specific industries that are working particularly well on Facebook?
I'm not running any major campaigns at the moment, but I'm putting together a campaign right now, B2B style. And everyone that I've spoken to finds that anyone who's anyone, basically, has been telling me that, yeah, anything works on Facebook. You just got to know the right approach. And the reason why is just because there's probably 1 billion people on Facebook. Everyone's on Facebook. So it just can work for almost anything. I'm yet to test it for the funnel that I'm putting together right now. So it may not work, but I've already spoken to people that are closing big deals, with customers that are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars with them over the lifetime of the client, the relationship, and they're starting those relationships on Facebook. So there's no doubt that it works. Okay,
and is it newsfeed advertising you'd focus on rather than actually the banner ads at the side?
Correct.
Or it is, yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's the same kind of thing that I'm hearing from a lot of people as well. I spoke to Dennis Yu, a Facebook specialist marketer, and asked him whether or not it was just business to consumer that was working on Facebook, and he was going, no, that's the big secret. B2B does work, but you just got to do it right. Okay, which just takes us on to
my number one takeaway.
So, John, even though I can't see you, I can hear you. So that's great. So you've offered a lot of great advice in our conversation. But what's the number one takeaway? What's the single most important step that our listeners need to take away and implement in their own businesses?
When I think about the last 3 or 4 years of doing this and playing this game, I think that the biggest thing that would have changed everything else would have been sticking with stuff, and not just sticking with one business, because I've stuck with one business for the last 3 years. The McMethod, I've had that for the last 3 years. And that's not just sticking with one business, but sticking with one project within the business. So I started a Facebook campaign, a paid community. I did some high ticket consulting, and then I'd go back to the paid community, and I kept spreading myself thin like that. And so while I felt good that I was focused on one business, I wasn't really that focused, because I'd do something for a few months, then go, this isn't really working, let's do something else. And so my advice to myself from 4 years ago, the one big takeaway would be, whatever you pick, if other people are making money with it, there's a good chance that it's working. And so if it's not working for you within 3 months, the problem isn't you. The problem is that you just haven't figured out how to make it work yet. And the solution then is not to go and try something different. It's to keep working on that thing and feel the pain of being dumb, of, failing at it, of having to grind just like everyone else does, feeling like you're not as smart as you like to think you are. All of that, I think that would be the one big thing that would have changed a lot for me over the last few years. Not technology, not some tactic or something like that, but just a willingness to commit to something and stay with it until it works.
Until it works. There's never a time to quit. Maybe after a year or after 2 years or something like that. Do you think?
I don't know. I think there is. This is one of those things, right? There's not really any hard line where you should quit. Like, a guy like Elon Musk, who I think a lot of people really admire. I admire him for what he does with, SpaceX. Elon Musk, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So Elon Musk, right? He did 3 or 4 launches with SpaceX, and every single one of them failed. And he was just pissing away his entire fortune that he'd built with PayPal and Zip32. We're talking hundreds of millions of dollars that he was just throwing away into the wind on this ludicrous idea of building spaceships that were, by a private company. And after 3 failed rocket launches, I'd say everyone was telling him that it was time to quit. It was time to pull back, and he didn't. And now he has a multi-billion-dollar company in his hand with contracts with NASA, and now he's working towards taking humans to Mars with the next 10 or 20 years. Now we might not get there, but I find it interesting that he was in a situation where probably everyone with any sort of common sense would have told him to quit, but he didn't, and it worked out. Now I don't know if that's just sort of lucky or a bit of the lottery. I think that it's probably more about it's not so much luck, because he's done this like 3 or 4 times now. So, I honestly don't know. People say that, there's a time to quit, set the end point, and maybe that's true sometimes. there's no easy answer to that question. You know, I think it depends on the person, the personality, the goals that you have. You know, he was prepared to lose, to lose the company, to go under, to go bankrupt if required. You know, to pursue that goal because it was so important to him. So, yeah,
it's certainly an interesting point of discussion, and I would certainly agree with you that the vast majority of people quit too soon. And they would actually be a success if they just kept on going, and persistence is absolute key there. And of course, you hear stories about people like Walt Disney going through however many banks to actually try and get funding for whatever he wanted to do. And I don't think the average person would have done that.
Exactly. So I mean, you know, and I think too, I mean, this brings up a really interesting point. I think with books like The 4-Hour Workweek and the Make Money Online, just world of like, you know, it's the world of the quick fix. And, you know, our entire sort of, you know, our generation, the computer generation, you know, we've been brought up with, you know, it's this instant world. Everything comes instantly with social media. And also we've all been sold this dream that life's meant to be fun and fulfilling and exciting all the time, that we're meant to live our passion, that, you know, it's almost like every minute of every day is meant to be, you know, wild and exciting. And if it's not, then you're totally failing at life. And that way of looking at it's not presented in those terms, but I feel like that's sort of how it's presented. If you're working don't work too hard, you know, you're going to die one day. You only live once. Slow down, take it easy, relax. And just find that doesn't that hasn't worked, and I don't find it like it's not a path to happiness, at least not for me, and a lot of people I know as well. So
I'm sure I could talk to you for a long, long time about this, but you've offered so much great information already, so it's hardly fair to take any more of your time, but you really have offered a lot of great volume. I really thank you for that. So tell you what, just why don't we finish off just by asking you about your best way to actually reach you, your website, any contact details you want to share?
Sure. So you can go to reengager.com. That's REENGAGER.com. That gives you all the information on what we do. There's a podcast there which you can check out, a white paper. There's a blog that's coming along nicely. I'm also on Twitter, which you can get me at twitter.com/John McIntyre, so MCINTYRE, _ at the end because some other dude took my the proper name.
I got mine back 8 years ago.
Lucky. Or you can email me at john@reengager.com. If you want to check out the other podcasts that I've done for the last 3 years, it's over at themcmethod.com, which is mcmethod.com. You can have a look there as well. There's about 120, I think we're up to 130 interviews there now as well, all on email marketing, copywriters, you know, so yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, this is number 127 for me, so just about the same kind of number. And I thought you were actually going to say up to about 100, 120, 130 resources, links that you'd actually mentioned in the show that I've got to go in and find and include in the show notes. Well, no, it's been great though, so thank you. And also thank you, dear friend, for listening to us as well. So if you like what you heard, send me a tweet, leave me a review, and wherever you're listening to this, say hello somewhere. That'd be cool, and it'd be absolutely fab to hear from you. And of course, it would help other peeps to find out more about the show too. And finally, I'm also host of another live show every Friday called This Week in Organic. So head over to thisweekinorganic.com to find out more about that. But that's all for now. Till we meet again, adios. And just last to say thank you very much, John. It was absolutely superb.
Thanks for having me.